The Ship That Stayed Afloat. Based on documented events. M.V. Joyita. In October of 1955, a small cargo vessel set out across the South Pacific. It was called the M.V. Joyita. The journey wasn't unusual. A routine trip from Samoa to the Tokelau Islands. On board were 25 people, crew members, passengers, and cargo. The weather was manageable. The route was familiar. There was no reason to expect anything out of the ordinary. But the ship never arrived. Days passed. No communication, no distress signal, nothing. Eventually, a search began. Planes scanned the ocean. Ships moved through the area, looking for any sign of what might have happened. At first, there was nothing, just open water. Then, weeks later, the Joyita was found, drifting. It wasn't wrecked, it wasn't sunk, it was still afloat. And that's where the situation becomes difficult to explain. The ship was damaged, but not enough to go down. One engine was not working. Parts of the structure showed signs of wear, but the vessel itself was designed to stay afloat, even under serious conditions. Inside, there was no one. All 25 people on board were gone. There were details that didn't quite fit together. Some of the cargo was still there. Personal belongings remained. Medical supplies had been disturbed. A doctor's bag was found open. The radio equipment was set to the wrong frequency, which meant even if a distress signal had been sent, it might not have been heard. There were also lifeboats missing, suggesting that at some point people had left the ship. But why abandon a vessel that was still floating? That question became the center of the mystery. If the crew believed the ship was sinking, they might have panicked. But the Joyita was known for one thing: it was extremely difficult to sink. Even damaged, it stayed above water. So what caused them to leave? Some theories suggested mechanical failure. Others pointed to fear or confusion. There were even ideas involving piracy or foul play. But none of them fully explained the situation. A ship capable of staying afloat, found drifting in open water with no sign of struggle and no trace of the people who had been on board. Whatever happened on the Joyita didn't take the ship. It took the people who believed they had to leave it. The Last Footage. Based on documented events. Elisa Lam case. In their 2013, a young woman named Elisa Lam was traveling alone in Los Angeles. She had been documenting her trip, sharing updates, photos, thoughts. It was something she had done before. Nothing about it seemed unusual. She checked into the Cecil Hotel, a place with a long and complicated history. At the time, it was just a place to stay. For a few days, everything appeared normal, and then she disappeared. At first, there was uncertainty. Maybe plans had changed. Maybe she had left the city. But as days passed, that explanation became harder to hold on to. Eventually, the police released a piece of footage, taken from inside one of the hotel elevators. And that footage is what changed everything. In the video, Elisa steps into the elevator. She presses multiple buttons. Then she pauses. She looks out into the hallway, waits, steps forward, then back again. Her movements are irregular, not fast, not slow, just inconsistent. At one point, she moves to the side, almost as if making space for someone, but no one enters. The elevator doors remain open longer than expected. She steps out, then back in again. There's a moment where she leans forward, as if trying to see something just out of view. And then she leaves the frame. The elevator doors finally close. That footage spread quickly, not because it showed something clear, but because it didn't. People tried to interpret it. Was she afraid? Was she hiding? Was she reacting to something or someone? There were no clear answers. Days later, guests at the hotel began to report problems. Water pressure was inconsistent. The taste was unusual. That led to a search of the building. Eventually, staff checked the water tanks on the roof. That's where Elisa was found, inside one of the tanks. The discovery raised more questions than it answered. How had she reached the roof? Access points were restricted. How had she entered the tank? The lid was heavy. Why was there no clear sign of how she got there? Investigations followed. Reports were written. Timelines were reviewed. But even with official conclusions, the uncertainty remained, because the footage still doesn't fully explain what happened. It shows behavior, but not cause. It shows movement, but not intent. And whatever happened in those final moments was never captured, only suggested by what we still can't fully understand. The message that came too late. Based on reported events, SS Ourang Medan. Sometime in the late 1940s, a distress signal was picked up in the waters of the Strait of Malacca. It wasn't long, it wasn't detailed, but it was clear enough to understand. All officers, including captain, are dead, lying in chart room and bridge. There was a pause, static. Then the message continued. Possibly whole crew dead. Another pause, longer this time. And then one final line. I die. After that, silence. The signal came from a ship called the SS Ourang Medan. A nearby vessel received the transmission and changed course. When they reached the location, the ship was still there, drifting. From a distance, nothing looked damaged. No fire, no collision, just a vessel sitting in open water. A boarding team was sent across, and what they found didn't match anything they expected. The crew was exactly where the message had described, on the deck, in the chart room, near their stations. They were not moving. There were no visible injuries, no signs of violence, but their expressions were frozen. Eyes open, faces tense, as if whatever had happened suddenly and left no time to react. Even the ship's dog was found the same way. The air inside the ship felt wrong, heavy, unnatural. Reports from those who boarded later described a strange atmosphere, not something they could clearly define, but something they noticed immediately. There were no signs of a struggle, no evidence of attack, no clear cause. And then something changed. Smoke was seen rising from below deck. The boarding crew returned to their vessel quickly. Moments later, the SS Ourang Medan exploded. The ship sank, taking everything with it. No investigation could be completed. No physical evidence remained. Only the signal and the accounts from those who saw it. Over time, explanations were suggested. Toxic gas, chemical reactions, something released from the cargo. But none of it was ever confirmed. Some details remain uncertain. Even the ship itself does not appear clearly in official records, which leaves the story in a strange place. A distress call, a crew found exactly where described, no visible cause, and a ship that vanished before it could be fully understood. Whatever happened on board didn't leave behind evidence, only a message that ended just before anyone could respond.